Hello and welcome to Guitar Summit Talk. We don't have that many people floating around here because we're already short of closing times. Um, but everybody on live stream who's following us, welcome, and a big welcome to Martina Blazeska.
Yes. Thank you so
You
much.
simplified the name. You just told me that
I
beforehand.
did.
Um, so this is your second time. This is the other thing you told me before, and this is the second time at Guitar Summit. But this time you're not only a visitor, you're also active
Yes,
as an
exactly.
artist. So how's that for you so far? Do you enjoy the event so far, or
Yeah, I was able to be here last year as an attendee. Was just getting like a taste of the environment, like met a lot of people, and this year is actually different because I'm having this little interview, and tomorrow I'm having a workshop with Shure
nice?
at 1:30 p.m. It's one of the electric stage one actually.
Okay.
And I think it's different because I needed to prepare. It's obviously gonna be more. I would need to approach it differently than last year because last year it was just here, basically as a tourist, also visiting the city and getting to do something musically. But this time
See.
it's basically my job to be here, which is very
And
nice.
and what is the workshop going to be? So it's going to be Shure. It's a microphone. Well, vastly known for
Yeah.
microphones. What is the workshop going to be about?
The workshop is not gonna be that much gear related. It's about being a guitarist and singer-songwriter in the modern digital era.
Uh huh.
So it's gonna be more about how I approach my career and artistry as a singer-songwriter, which I'm also a guitar player. So I am also in this world as well. So combining those two is very interesting and to navigate.
Mm.
So the workshop is going to be more about that and giving some tips to how to approach that as a new up and coming guitar player, singer songwriter, for anybody who does it as a hobby, for anybody who does it professionally, basically just sharing my insights
Got it.
into what I've gotten so far out of my career.
Um, The next question is something I'm asking everyone that has been sitting here because everybody seems to have a different story to that. What is your sort of earliest memory of listening maybe to a sound or an instrument that kind of catched your attention and you were like, oh, I want to explore that. I want to know more about this. This is inspiring.
Interesting. Like the earliest memory, as in the early, what I remember.
What you remember that you were that something, and it's, as I said, it's very different.
Yeah,
I've talked with people who said, like, when I was 9 years old I heard a piano and it
yeah,
kind of had an impact on me,
yeah,
and then other people, like, they were in their teens when it really struck them. It's like, oh, I want to start playing guitar
yeah.
because they heard a song that was guitar based or
Yeah, for me, it was. I remember very clearly. I was in school.
hmm
It was eighth grade,
hmm
and we had a music lesson.
hmm
And our teacher made one of the peers actually perform "Nothing Else Matters" in
yeah,
front of the class, and that was the first time I saw guitar that close to me. Usually, my parents would sometimes take me to concerts, but
yeah,
the performer would be like
very far
further.
away, yeah, yeah,
And here it was very, very close to me, so I was able to see it and hear it and feel the impact. And the student played in front of us. It was like a little showcase,
mm.
and I was just mesmerized. I just watched this performance of Nothing Else Matters, and it blew my mind. I was in that moment. I was sure that I want to try this.
Okay,
We didn't have a guitar at home,
okay,
so I had to go back, tell my parents, who found me like a toy, like a very small toy guitar,
mm.
and this guitar was not, it was a toy. So it
Okay,
was very limiting, but
obviously, yeah,
I practiced long enough to convince them to actually buy me an actual guitar.
oh yeah,
So yeah, that's the earliest memory I have of really wanting to
wanting to,
become a guitar player because of how it was just beautiful to see this person perform
yeah,
in front of me. So I was really, I felt like I needed to do this.
I want to do the same
Yeah,
thing.
I really, and that was the first song I learned too. Nothing else.
Yeah, I can relate to the guitar story. My mom was very hesitant to buy me a guitar, and then when she finally bought it to me, I was 13.
Yeah,
She was like, "Oh, nice," and then when she saw what I did with it, she was like, "Oh, that was a big mistake. This is going to be horrible." But then in the end, I managed to convince her that it was a good choice. So then you started learning the instrument. You picked it up. What was your approach? Did you start to look at notation or tabs, which is like the simplified way, or did you listen to things and started to play along? What was your approach when you started?
I did first by listening. So I
Hmm.
would hear a song that I would like, and I would try to transcribe it. So I would
Okay.
was clueless, obviously, of the fretboard. So my fingers would just try to find where the sound is,
Hmm.
and then I would realize that everything is kind of around there,
Yeah.
like tonally. So I would learn like that, and then shortly after I got a teacher, guitar teacher, who would write me both notation and then the tab
And
below.
tabs.
So I
Yeah.
was able to read both.
Nice.
And I realized that tabs were easier for me at the time to read because I wasn't very fluent in reading music.
Okay.
So I would read the tabs because that was easier for me, but I would never tell him that I'm
Right.
just reading the tabs. And then I would also learn songs like that. I would combine it with my ear,
Yeah.
but sometimes if I wasn't sure, I would just check the tab to see if I'm doing like I'm in the right position or so.
Yeah.
So I think tabs, and then later on I got into actually reading music and
Okay.
noting music.
Okay. That's it's nice to hear. It's refreshing to hear that because that seems to be it seems to be something that's coming back. People like starting to listen to things by ears. Like I just told the previous interview guest that my cousin learned that way. He just for 2 months he was just looking at
Yeah.
YouTube videos, and after 2 months he could play entire songs, which is like amazing.
Yeah, that is.
That was impossible 20 years ago. So we've definitely come a long way. And then you decided at some point that you wanted to go all in, and you went to Berkeley.
Yes.
What do you take away? Because I've heard different stories. I've heard people who would, yeah, it was a nice experience, but a lot of these guys actually they didn't graduate. They went away. After a year, they felt like they wanted to do things on their own. What is, but you graduated.
I
So,
did, yes.
what is your biggest takeaway from your experience in Boston at Berkeley?
Yeah, most people go there for a short while. That's why it's very common that people go check it out and then drop. They either get too busy, they get bands that they get in the real world.
Mm.
But for me, I went there with the goal to kind of further educate myself. So I stayed the whole duration because Berkeley is an amazing school with amazing teachers, and I just wanted to get as much knowledge as I could.
Okay.
And I feel like what makes it so special is the environment
Hmm.
because there's people, students from all over the world with different musical backgrounds, different experience. Also, Berkeley is very open when it comes to admission. They accept people at a different level. So you would have
Yeah, I've heard about
somebody,
that. Yeah.
yeah, somebody who is far more advanced than you, and somebody who is less, somebody's in your ballpark basically. So you get to collaborate with all kinds of different students that kind of give you their experience,
Hmm.
and you see something you've never seen before. It's very easy to grow and learn at a very fast pace because of that, because of
Okay.
the connections you make. And Boston is a very beautiful city. Like everybody used to tell me before that it was very European, and I didn't believe anybody because I've never been. And then I was like, yeah, this is very European. Like looks
Boston
very like,
is.
yeah, it's New
Yeah.
England. It's very much like the UK
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So I fell in love with the city, and it's a very just a very musical environment. It's very special. It's I feel like I've never been in such a tense, intense musically environment that makes you pushes you to like become your best self, to be a
Mm.
better musician, to also pursue your goals.
Yeah.
Because the school is very business oriented,
Yeah.
so it actually takes you in that direction as well. So you kind of open your views to what you're gonna do afterwards,
Right.
after it's all done.
Okay. Um, if I'm not mistaken, one of your biggest inspirations is also a Berkeley dropout,
Yeah.
would be John Mayer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
I've read the his story where he after a year he felt like no, I don't want this. Like all the other students were like doing so much stuff on the guitar, and he's like, nah, it's not for me. So that's when he went away. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, in comparison to him, you graduated. So good for
Hey.
good for you. Um, and then going a little bit fast forward, um, recently, well, you achieved like a brighter spotlight thanks to social media, which if I look at the bigger picture, seems to be a difficult task these days because it's so overwhelmed, it's so overflooded. with people, and most of them are really, really talented, and others just like, I want to put myself out there. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that obviously doesn't make it easier to kind of cut through um, this huge chunk of people. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the challenges, the difficulties, and maybe you have recommendations for someone who is like, hey, I want to do that. I want to put myself out there. I know that I have what it takes.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a little bit different because I caught that very short period before all these platforms, before basically social media turned what it is nowadays. Because I caught this time where views were irrelevant. We
Yeah.
didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
Like we know nowadays, how many views does your video have? So I
Yeah.
caught a period where I was able to focus on not social media, like exploring just the musical aspect of it. And
Okay.
sure, and when it happened for me, it was very new that I didn't even understand what was going on because
Yeah.
I just posted one video, and it would just keep growing. It like reached 50,000, then 100,000, then a million, like half a million views. So that was very new to me, and it happened very organically. So
Okay.
at the time, I had no clue how any of it works, but over time, because I've been doing it so much, I kind of understood more and more about it. And I would say that while it's also very much dependent on the listener, like the listener decides if they like
Obviously.
something or not, there are also some basic rules one can follow. For example, how the content looks. Like nowadays, everybody is overwhelmed, like you said, with so much content. And what one can do to actually help them is simplify like how it is all presented. So when I grab my phone, I have a few seconds to decide if I like this person or move on to the next. So
Yeah.
in those few seconds, I need to get what this person's all about. And in those few seconds, it's very important that I, as an artist, offer them what I'm all about. So that's why I treat like social media as a very professional way to present your music, because when you open my social media, you see guitar, and that's pretty much it. You see
Yeah.
music, you see guitar, and when somebody clicks on my page, it's very easy for them to distinguish, oh, actually, this is guitar, this interests me, I'm gonna follow, I'm gonna listen. So it's important to present the content in a good way. It's important to make it all look very approachable. Um, and I feel like quality also plays a big part.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, we have so much
100%.
technology, so it's very, I feel like, affordable to make content look good. And I feel like those are some basic rules that I feel like if new artists would follow, they would already like put their work out there for people to decide if they're gonna grab on it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's funny where you say like you have a few
Yeah.
seconds to decide. Sometimes I feel like when reels became a thing,
Yeah.
and you just suddenly, for me it was like Tinder but going vertically. You know, you like up next, next,
That is
next,
very
next.
true.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, Good insights. So, and at some point, the next level that you reached was you got into a relationship with Ibanez Guitars. How did that happen? Did they approach you?
So it happened very spontaneously. I was at NAM in 2016, and it was the first time I was able to check Ibanez guitars and play them. And I was in a little corner testing some of the acoustic guitars, and I was approached by one of the Ibanez people,
Okay.
who I was introduced to him by somebody else, but they kind of observed me, and I was playing a little bit,
Okay.
and then they came and we exchanged some thoughts, and I told them that I love their instruments. Obviously, it's Ibanez, so we were able to take it from there. They offered me an endorsement. I said yes immediately, and yeah, it's been a beautiful partnership of 7 years now.
It's it's a long time,
Yeah.
definitely. And if you had to choose, what would be your instrument of choice? Would you go electric or would you go acoustic?
Oh, that's a very hard question.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the toughest question
yeah.
of the evening, so don't worry.
Oh, wow. I did not expect that, even though it's such an obvious question. I started with acoustic, so that will always be my first love,
Yeah.
because I wanted to, actually, I did want to be a lead guitar player, but I couldn't because I had
Okay.
an acoustic guitar only at home. So I
Okay.
would learn these solos that were obviously very electric, very lead guitar-y on an acoustic guitar.
On
It was
acoustic,
painful, honestly, it didn't want to
terrible.
work. Then I realized, oh, this is not going to work for me. I
Okay.
might as well do something else.
And
So I started finger picking, I started approaching the acoustic guitar as it should be approached, like an acoustic guitar, and that took me in that direction. So I would say that's my first love, so I love acoustic guitars, even though nowadays, in the last 4 years, I've been playing electric almost exclusively. I think like for me it's a phase. So I went through the acoustic phase fully out. I also, for a long period of time, I was a fingerstyle guitar player
yeah.
where I didn't sing much. And now I'm switching to electric. So I feel like it will come and go as I go throughout like
Okay.
my musical phases.
So we can say no real favorite here. It's difficult.
No, no, no. If I had to, I would say acoustic just because it's my first love, but it's hard because I love electric guitars too.
And these days, what kind of music are you into, and maybe what kind of music even has an impact on you, and might even impact some of the stuff that you compose?
Hmm. Well, my music taste is very versatile.
Mm.
Like I can go from listening to Steely Dan to
Hmm.
listening to John Scofield to listening to Harry Styles
I can
in
relate.
like
Yeah,
a few
I can
songs.
relate.
So it's become a bit of like a crazy taste. But I feel like I'm listening to a lot of pop music, which I never did before,
Mm.
because I did listen to a lot of jazz. I listened to a lot of rock music. Like I
Okay.
love the Police, for example. So
Oh yeah.
I would just listen to the Police on and on for years, and I feel like I'm exploring pop music for the first time. And
Really?
it's yeah,
Wow.
so it's
Okay.
very interesting, and I love it.
Sort of a backwards approach.
Yeah, backwards. I feel like a lot of people go to pop first and then they discover all this stuff, but for me it was the other way around. So I'm kind of getting all this influence from pop music at the minute.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, with the music, I totally can relate. I'm listening to John Mayer and Meshuggah.
Exactly. That's the same approach.
And my son likes both things as well. He likes
Yeah.
to listen to both things.
Yeah.
It's
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 the modern
amazing.
world we
It's
live in.
it's the modern world.
Yeah.
Here's another tough question. Everybody gets asked that question. You're on a lonely island. You have electricity on that lonely island,
Mhm.
but you can only take 3 pieces of gear with you. What do you take?
Gear.
3 pieces of, and it can be anything. You can be a guitar, can be a bass, can be
Okay.
whatever you.
Mhm. I would take my Ibanez Talman,
Mhm.
the TM302, the blue
Yeah.
sparkle one.
Acoustic.
Uh,
Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tallman. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the electric. I would take my Laney A Duo amp
Mhm.
and TC Electronic Hall of Fame reverb.
That is a very simple yet effective setup.
I think that's all I would need on an island.
That's a good list. I think you were the fastest to decide. Everybody was like, "God, what I'm gonna take?
Option
I can't take
paralysis.
everything."
No, I know what I want.
Okay, very good.
I do
Very
know
very good for you. Um, Final question before we wrap it up. What things are currently going on, and what kind of future plans do you have looking forward? And I mean, yeah, we're in September now. The end of the year is approaching. What's going on for you in 2024?
Yeah. Well, at the minute I'm working on my first album.
Nice.
So that is, I think that'll be what's gonna occupy my next months to the max because it requires a lot of studio time, a lot of work. So I kind of dialed everything down just so I can be focused and work on my album. I do have a gig here and there occasionally, but it's mostly my album.
Okay.
And I hope it comes out by middle of next year.
Middle of next year.
Yes.
That's a good goal. That's a good
Yes.
projection. Awesome. Martina, thank you very much for your
Thank you
time.
so much.
Thank you for carving out the time to talk to us. And yeah, enjoy the workshop. It's going to take tomorrow at what time?
Tomorrow, 1:30.
1:30.
Yes.
And enjoy the rest of the
Thank
show.
you so much. It was a
Much.
pleasure.